I greet you with the greetings of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. As we begin, I want to welcome all of you again to CARE's important policy conference that has been overdue, in my opinion, considering all the changes happening. And alhamdulillah, all of you got here. All of you are major players, influencers, in one way or the other, in your community, in the country. And this is about us exchanging ideas, inshallah, so we can be part of the solution. The session for this morning, and it's going to be a busy day. I hope you keep the energy, especially for those who are from the West Coast. It's going to be a busy day with a lot of sessions, a lot of speakers, a lot of engagement, to be culminated with a banquet at the end. So we need your energy throughout the day and the night, inshallah. But it's worthwhile, because we're in the middle of probably most interesting, scary, challenging, opportunistic times in our lifetime. And I hope we don't have to face anything more challenging than what we're dealing with, because that takes enough of our attention. This morning's session is about claiming civic power in a shifting America. And we have a panel of pillars of change and addressing policy and addressing building power in our community, each in their own way, unique way, but adding up together to a change that we're looking for and hoping for. And that change is well known to all of us. We're witnessing a change that is not only impacting our country or people in our country, but it's impacting the rest of the world by virtue of who we are as a country. Politically, we're seeing an assault or a creeping of fascism and an assault on free speech happening, whether it's in media, universities, campuses. I come from California. They're pushing a bill, AB 715, where now they will deny you even to talk about Palestine in public schools. Basically, you'll be labeled as anti-Semitic if you dare to talk about the Nakba or the genocide that is happening in Gaza. So imagine the assault, the fascism that we're dealing with. Kimmel being canceled, all of that is something that creates fear, but also opportunities for us. We're also dealing with society itself being polarized in extreme ways we haven't seen in recent times. Now if you say something deemed unpopular by right-wingers, imagine the doxing, the intimidation that happens, the attacks on your workplace, on your safety. We saw the attacks on a member of Congress, Ilhan Omar, who was here last night and spoke to us. No one is immune and safe from such hatred that is existing. We're witnessing change in xenophobia, which is on the rise in our country today. The demonization and dehumanization of migrants and immigrants, especially brown and black immigrants in this country. The way ICE is dealing with them as criminals, beating them up, using tactics we thought we would never see again in such a prominent and accepted way in our country back on TV. We see the raids, the ICE raids, the intimidation, the attacks on organizations defending the rights of immigrants. But also in the midst of all of that, we see a positive change in public opinion in how they perceive the situation in Palestine and Israel. For the first time today in America, we have actually more people in America calling themselves pro-Palestinian than pro-Israel. This is the first time in America's history and Israel's history. Think of Allahu Akbar. And indeed, we thank Allah, God Almighty, for that. We thank the perseverance of the people of Gaza who have taught the world what it means to be a persevering human being seeking your freedom and your dignity. But also a lot of that has to do with young people, with activists, and every one of these individuals here, esteemed panelists, in their own way, and yourselves here attending, in changing that public opinion. Today, we see only 32% of Americans supporting Israel's military action, i.e. the genocide in Gaza. 32%. Actually, in the same poll, 60% said they don't oppose, so they're not neutral. 60% they're saying they don't. And when actually you look at Democrats, for example, that's only 8% who say they support, 8%, not even 10%. But with all that we say, still we didn't see a change in policy. we still see 98% of our elected officials in Congress or state levels, when dealing with state policies, still voting in support of the genocide, shielding the genocide, enabling the genocide, and so on. So why is there a dichotomy or a gap between what we are seeing and witnessing on the ground with people's perspectives changing and policies? Is there a reason? Of course, there is one. And my hope is today, with our very esteemed guests, and I'm going to go briefly over an introduction. Their introduction, the full bio is available. If you click on the app, you have the app or the link provided in the booklet, so you can get the full-fledged bio of each one of them. But for the interest of time, I'm sure you'd rather hear from them than me introducing them. But I'm going to give a quick introduction to each one of them, starting with our dear sister Zainab, Minnesota State Senator Zainab Mohammed, first one on the panel there. A dear friend, dear sister, I've had the honor of knowing for many years since she started running. And you know, she is actually a Somali-American immigrant, and also a person who made history in 2022 as the youngest woman ever elected to the Minnesota State Senate, and among the first black women to serve in the chamber. Her career, that's what I've had the chance to know her before. Her career prior to the state senate included being a community advocacy person with CARE Minnesota. She's been, mashallah, making waves, positive waves, not only in Minnesota, but inspiring so many of us about the importance of that engagement. Next is a dear friend, of course, from Southern California originally. We still claim him, Haris Tarin. Haris serves as the Vice President of Policy and Programming at the Muslim Public Affairs Council, MPAC. He brings over a decade of federal experience from U.S. Department of Homeland Security, where he held senior advisory roles on immigration, civil rights, civil liberties, and national security. Next is also someone making waves in the political field is Dr. Abdul As-Sayyid from Michigan. He's a physician, public health professor, former Detroit Health Department director, and most recently, director of Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services. Dr. As-Sayyid is now running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. He has earned endorsements from many leaders throughout the country, including Bernie Sanders. And just as a side note, disclaimer, as CARE nonprofit, we don't endorse any candidates, just to make sure that since we have few elected officials and candidates. But we're always proud to see people with good values running, and even better when they are from the Muslim community, representing the best of our community, mashallah. Next is also another dear friend from Southern California, somebody I had the honor of meeting when he was running for office, also as you know, one of his fans watching his show for many years. I'm talking about Cenk Uygur, who's next, is Turkish American. He's a political commentator, media host, attorney, and co-creator of the famous media outlet called the Young Turks, one of the largest progressive news and commentary platforms online. He also co-founded Just as Democrats, a political action organization aimed at electing progressive candidates into public office. And mashallah, his videos go viral within the Muslim community, the pro-Palestine activists, and everyone who wants to see change in our political system. So keep up the great work, mashallah, also. And last but not least, to my right side is Sister Sophia Abdi. Mashallah, we're talking about the meaning of Sophia, you know, different sides of the meaning, as I enjoyed having a quick chat with Sister Sophia. Sophia serves as the Community Engagement Manager in the Congressional Office of Representative Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts. In that role, she's responsible for developing and sustaining connections between the district's diverse communities and the Congresswoman's office, coordinating outreach initiatives and facilitating constituent engagement and civic participation. So as you see, a very diverse group, but each one of them in their own way are shaping public opinion and power building in our community. So I'm gonna go with one quick question to all of them, hear from them maybe a quick 3 minutes, maybe quick comment on it, and then we'll take a couple of questions from me that I could direct to some of them, and then we'll, if time permits, I know all of that in 1 hour. We're going to do miracles here today, inshallah. But they can do it, mashallah. They're used to being focused and quick with their responses. So the first question to each one of you is, how can we claim, build, and wield power rooted in justice? And what are we called to do now in the moment of all these changes? And each from your own perspective, you don't have to cover every, policy, media, etc. See how you can impact that, and maybe we'll start from Sophia and we'll go that way, inshallah.
Certainly, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I would say right now we're in a very strange moment, and I will only speak from the perspective of somebody that's always in community. We need our people to be present politically. The civic engagement really starts with you. And for me right now, because I'm Muslim, I work for a very progressive person, my main thing has generally been about Palestine. But again, we're not a monolith. The Muslim community cares about a lot of things. Immigration, as you guys can see right now, our immigration is under attack. But there's so many things that we can do, but engagement starts really within ourselves. Reach out to your elected officials, get involved, coalition building, work with groups that are already on the ground doing the work. But I will stop there.
Hello, everybody. So we all know that we're living in dark times. We all know the bad news, but I'm here to deliver a little bit of good news. So for the first time in my life, the right wing in this country has started to move towards us. It is, if you didn't believe in miracles before, apparently prayers work. This is an enormously important development, and the other side is in an absolute panic over it. And even Netanyahu himself is going to podcasts, is sweating on screen, is saying, oh, no, don't leave. And I'm seeing remarkable things. Right-wing brothers and sisters starting to say, I don't know why we've been picking on these guys. I don't know why we had a beef with them in the first place. Wait a minute. They're Israel's opponents. Why did we make them our opponents? And so that is an amazing development. I want you to focus on something important to answer the question. As you all go out there, do two things for me. One, do not attack the powerless, attack the powerful, okay? So that means no more fighting left, right, center, okay? No more fighting among the citizens, etc. We fight the powerful. We fight the politicians who are 98% corrupt. They're corrupt for every lobby. They're corrupt for the drug lobby, they're corrupt for the oil lobby, the defense contractor lobby, but don't tell me they're corrupt for every lobby but the Israeli lobby. No, we know, okay? And it isn't about picking on the Israeli lobby, but by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with picking on the Israeli lobby. There's a lobby for genocide in America. And we are told that they are not offensive, but when we ask them to care about our children's lives, we are hurting their feelings. I am here to hurt Israeli lobbyists' feelings, okay? And I am very proud to hurt their feelings. So focus on the powerful. By the way, the second thing is mainstream media. I have to be honest with you, they have been our greatest enemy. They have smeared us as the enemy my entire life. What did we ever do to you? Okay? Anytime there's a Muslim on screen, it's bad news. Never good news. Always framed in the worst possible way. And then they say to us, our number one concern is the feelings of the Israelis. No, my number one concern is the lives of our children. So when I say, hey, 60,000 people have been killed, or 65,000 at a bare minimum, over 20,000 children, don't tell me, yes, but you hurt someone else's feelings. Maybe I'll get to that later, okay? And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and this isn't about attacking one another as citizens, because some of our best allies are Jewish brothers and sisters. This is not about religion. This is about a foreign government saying that, no, don't listen to your fellow Americans, to Muslim Americans. Don't value them. Only value me. No way. Okay? So let's reach out to everyone and say the second thing that I'm going to ask you to do. Just look, let me do the fighting on air and let me be super aggressive. For you guys, you just ask everyone the bare minimum. Can you acknowledge that I'm human? And can you acknowledge that my babies are valuable, that they're precious, that they're just like your babies? That's our only ask, and it's not a big ask. And if we got that, if we got everyone to believe that the 20,000 dead Palestinian kids are as valuable as the 36 Israeli kids, just 36 to 20,000. They say, no, you're not as valuable. No, it's not as important. That's not fair. It's not fair. Just simply ask people, aren't our kids' lives worth something too? Let's all do that, and I think we'll be in a better place.
Very well said.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Guys, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. All right. I really appreciate the question, and I think it's an important subject for discussion because I think it raises a number of questions. I think one of the frustrations many of us in this room have often had is that we've engaged civics with a split mind. On the one hand, we understand that we have friends and neighbors and loved ones in this country here who are not getting a fair shake at a dignified life. We can look at the healthcare they go without. You can look at the failure of our infrastructure. You can look at the crumbling of our schools, and we say we have a real responsibility to invest in those things. And on the other, by virtue of the community we come from, we have an understanding of what living on the wrong side of America's very long arm can look and feel like. And we've been seeing it in the grossest sense for the past 2 years. And I think we think sometimes that advocacy on both of those sides is two different things. I want you to look at this room. This is actually two rooms. I'm literally sitting in the middle of it. If you were to pull the divider in this room, right, we would have two rooms, two different messages. They may, in fact, today, later pull this, and you'll have two different rooms for two different discussions. I think it is time for our community to recognize that those two things that we've been told are mutually exclusive aren't just not mutually exclusive. In fact, they're mutually inclusive. Every dollar that we send abroad to drop bombs on other people's children is a dollar we don't spend to provide healthcare or good schools for our children. I've spent my entire career advocating for healthcare in this country. And every time you stand up and say, hey, I want to give glasses to kids, or I want to eliminate medical debt, or I want to make sure that kids don't have to breathe dirty air coming from the smokestack of a polluter, people tell you, we don't really have the money for that. I'm so sorry. And then you look at where our money goes, and it's being sent to subsidize a genocide among folks who look like our children abroad. And I think this is the moment where we open the divider and say, actually, we can do both at the same time. In fact, we have to do both at the same time. This work is one and the same. The work to advocate for our children here, to protect kids who've been on the wrong side of deep domestic injustice here, to take on the problems that persist in our country here, requires us to be honest about how we misappropriate our funds over there. They are one and the same fight. And I want us, as we're talking about this issue, always to be talking about the ways those things are connected. I've been up and down the state of Michigan. I've done 100 public events in 57 cities, places that you couldn't point on a map. And no matter where I go, the biggest applause line that I get in rooms where people don't look like this, I promise you, is that in an era where our kids' schools are crumbling, maybe we shouldn't be sending our money abroad to drop bombs on other kids in their schools. And so I want us to understand something, right? We get really good at getting loud. But if you have a choice between hitting somebody with a shovel or a blow dart, pick the blow dart. People still feel the effects for days and days later. And so I think when we argue, we're so focused on saying it louder as if it's going to penetrate because we said it louder and we're so angry about it. But ask yourself this. Do the people who live on the wrong side of injustice, is it your anger that needs to be heard, or is it their outcomes that need to be respected? And I think we have a responsibility to be translating what it is that we're about in language that other people can understand because we situate it within the bounds of the lives that they live, rather than the ones that we necessarily see. And so we have an opportunity right here to tell folks that truth is truth and justice is justice. The injustice of sending bombs abroad is the same thing as the injustice of kids starving here in Washington, D.C. or in Michigan. And I think we have an opportunity to be talking about that and to frame all of these broader issues on those terms. And I hope that we take it. Jazakumullah khair.
So don't be loud, but I think, Cenk, you can continue to be loud because you're on. We appreciate that on TV.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Going after Cenk and Abdul is not an easy task, but it's all good. I think the first thing that we recognize, if you're talking about building power and building influence in this country, is to understand that this country is not your grandfather's country anymore. It's not the America of Ronald Reagan. Even though Ronald Reagan, a quick fact, he was shot up here by this hotel. So if you get a chance, you can see the little plaque outside. This is not Ronald Reagan or Jimmy Carter or even Nixon's America. This is a completely different America. Power and power structures and the leverage of power in America has changed drastically. We are now in America at the most unequal time in this country's history. We are more unequal economically, socially, racially than even the Gilded Age, when we had conglomerates who were controlling almost every aspect of our life in America. We have come back to that, and it's worse now. The tech companies control almost everything in this country, including power, data, information, everything that impacts our lives. People who talk about, we are on the Hill and in Congress almost every single day. When I look at members of Congress and when I speak to them, both on the House and the Senate side, I actually feel a sense of powerlessness in them right now. They feel powerless. We had a Hill Day this Wednesday. We met with about 2 to 3 senators and a few members of Congress. And the responses that you get from them, you almost feel bad for them as an elected official. Because the real power is not with them right now. The real power is with the corporations, is with the lobbies, it's with the industries, and that's what we have to first understand about this country. And what does that mean for us as American Muslims, as minority communities? Even though the numbers, as Brother Hussam mentioned earlier, we're probably in a new age where the majority of Americans feel a different way about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for the first time ever. But Americans historically have been on the right side on a lot of issues. Whether it was about marriage issues between races, whether it was about rights of minorities, whatever social, political issue, on a lot of them, Americans have actually been on the right side for generations. But that did not translate into shift of policy. That did not translate into shift of power. What we have to think about is, how do we leverage industry? How do we build our power internally, leveraging industry, leveraging coalition building, which we don't do extremely well? How do we get people who don't agree with us maybe on every single issue to agree with us on 1 or 2 issues? You bring them to the table, and we push an agenda, and we move an agenda forward. Because this moment that we're in is a different moment. It is a moment that has opportunity. It also has immense challenges. The same right wing that's with us on certain issues, as Cenk mentioned, is also not with us on a lot of issues. They don't want to see racial equality on issues. Immigration, they probably don't see eye to eye with us on. But how do we come together, and how do we take advantage of this moment and make sure that this moment is not lost as the leverage of power is changing this country? And number 1, build our own power, our own industry. Number 2, coalition building deeply with other communities, even if we may disagree with them on a lot of issues. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's good to be here with all of you. I think like almost everything has been said, so maybe I'll add a few things. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. When I first got elected, I remember sitting in my office and thinking to myself, okay, great, now I'm here. What's next? What's the plan? And I had quickly come to the realization that we elect people into public office without an agenda for what they can do for the community, right? And I remember it was like in the midst of like the budget season, and I had said to myself I wanted to pass a down payment assistance program for people who want to be homeowners. But I was deeply thinking about my family never being able to own a home because of the fact that they don't want to purchase a home with an interest. And so I started walking down the halls, talking to Republicans about interest-free, why it's important to my community, what it means to the Muslim faith, and they honestly weren't that opposed. And I say this to say we passed it. We passed a down payment assistance program with interest-free, and that was an issue where during the election, Kamala and Tim were both running on, not the interest-free part, but the other part. But when I think about, in this moment, what's happening in this country, I think what we forget as a community is the collective power that we do have. We technically shaped the last election, no matter how people view it. We are going to continue to shape the elections. But how many of you guys in this room are from DC? How many of you are from different states? Majority of you. What that means is the election's coming up in 2026, and yes, CARE is a C3, but I'll say it. It means that in your community, you're gonna have members who are running for Congress, who are gonna impact the issues that you care about, which means you probably should organize and talk to those folks and ask them the questions that you really care about. Because it's really important that we don't just look at Muslim candidates to do the right thing, because most of the time they will. But it's really important that we look at who's our congressperson. But down ballot matters most. What Hussam talked about and how they are reshaping who can speak at schools and what issues that they're gonna talk about in those schools is gonna matter. It's gonna shape the rest of politics and how we talk about these issues. And so don't just look at Congress, take a look at your state legislatures, take a look at your school board members, who's running in those seats, what do they care about, what policies are they willing to oppose that's gonna impact free speech in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, very well said. Yeah, please, of course.
As I listen, I think we're also missing one thing. We really do need to support elected officials that are on our side financially, but one thing that really goes a long way for them is picking up the phone, calling their office, saying thank you for standing with us, thank you for prioritizing policies that we care about, so that they know we also exist and we also are aware of the work that they're doing. So please call your elected officials, your congressional members, your senators. I mean, that's only if they're doing the right thing. But you could also call them to encourage them to be with you guys and be with us as well for the policies that we care about.
Actually, I wanted to build on your comment, Sophia. The question to each one of you, also in your own field, can you think of one thing, just one low-hanging fruit that the community, the activists, can do to make more dent in the work that we all aspire to see happening? You know, an example is what Sophia said, like, if each one of us makes it a habit to call on their elected officials to say, you know what, once a week I'm gonna dedicate 10 minutes to pick up the phone and call my member of Congress, my state senator, my city council member on the issues that are important to me. It will make a huge difference. And if we educate our community, but each is in the different circle and different perspective of work, whether media, running for office, policy work, etc. So if I can ask each of the panelists to think of one thing that we can either, I would say, either do or stop doing that will take the community at least to the next level. I'll give you the chance to, you don't have to follow the order, but each one, if you can think of one.
Just get off the internet. No, I mean that like very, very honestly. I think the trick of big tech is to intermediate every aspect of our lives through their platforms in ways that leave us hostage to their algorithm. And I think it's done two things for us. Number one, it has tricked us into thinking that the whole world looks like our algorithm. And two, it's tricked us into thinking that the mechanism of communication that does well online does well offline too. And so get off the internet, go talk to some folks you haven't talked to in a minute, talk to them with like the good old-fashioned manners that your parents taught you, right? In the ways that the Prophet ﷺ demonstrated. Understand how you would do that, and then when you get back online, do that thing online. And I think if we were able to spend more time looking people in the eye, you realize that the degree of the hostility that we think that is out there is not there, and that the ways that you can convince the majority of people don't look like dunking on someone online. And I think if we were able to reprogram the approach to talking and listening that the internet overlords have given us, I think we would do a lot better. And you can have a much more effective conversation with somebody when they actually hear you because they're not sending your content somewhere else. I'm gonna add one more thing just to piggyback off this point. The reason public opinion has shifted but it hasn't turned into politics is because of money. If there's a difference between public consensus, meaning what the public thinks and cares about, and political consensus, the difference is somebody's money. I'm going to use my issue here, healthcare. The broad public, even conservatives, agree that the government should have a critical role in the provision of healthcare, that there should be a guarantee in this country for healthcare. We're the richest, most powerful country in the world. The political consensus is that we can't possibly do it. It's way too expensive. What's the difference? Pharma has spent $4.3 billion, I don't have a cold, that's a B, over the last 20 years, manufacturing public opinion. I'm going to let you ask yourself, what other issue has a special interest spent a lot of time manufacturing political opinion on? So we do a lot where we get real mad, but we don't get smart and mad. We think that if we get real mad, we can fix everything today. That's not how this works. There's been a lot of organizing to manufacture that political opinion. The question for us is, are we willing to do the counter-organizing in a thoughtful and patient and directed way to get different outcomes? And we want everything on the cheap. I'm just going to say, in our community, everybody's looking for a deal. All right? Like a congressional seat doesn't happen on the cheap. A Senate seat doesn't happen on the cheap. A governor's seat doesn't happen on the cheap. There's no discount. I'll leave that there.
So, again, I'm going to break it down into two totally different categories. So, for the powerful, there's a couple things we could do as a community, and we could all try different ideas. One idea we have at Young Turks is tyt.com/no-more. What is that for? That's to say that if my representative takes money from the Israeli lobby, I'll never vote for them, okay? Because they're raising their hand and saying, I represent a different country. I don't represent you. I don't represent my voters. I have chosen, because of the money that I have received in campaign contributions, to represent Israel instead. Okay, that's a choice you made, and you've declared it to us, so we appreciate it. So we will now make the choice of never electing you again, because you're telling us it's a mistake, that you're not going to represent America, you're going to represent a different country. And I would say that about any country that they chose to represent, okay? So now if we can get that to be as viral as possible and people to realize, oh, it turns out almost all of our incumbents take money from the Israeli lobby, okay? Literally 90% of Congress. And will you look at that, 90% of Congress votes with Israel every time. Huh, I bet that's a coincidence. That's what I hear from mainstream media. Politicians don't care about money at all. And so, if they have power, we have power. Our power is votes, right? Now, as a community, I would argue, and in every circle I will argue, that we should pool our money and use it exactly as AIPAC does. And say, okay, they say if you even treat Palestinians as human, we will eliminate you from Congress. We will eliminate you from American politics. And guys, I want you to understand it's not just Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman and some of the spectacular cases that you've heard, and they brag about, we eliminated them, ha ha ha, now they won't serve America, okay? And that's a message to all of you, you better serve Israel. Yeah, I said it, okay? But also they eliminated Andy Levin in Michigan, okay? And Andy is from one of the storied Jewish families in Michigan, has been, a wonderful part of American politics. His entire family has. And so what did he do? Was he anti-Semitic? Of course not. He's Jewish, right? Was he anti-Israel? No, of course not. He was not anti-Israel. He just said two-state solution. He said, let's treat our brothers and sisters as fellow human beings. And they said, we're going to eliminate you. And they did. They spent millions of dollars buying that seat, okay? So let's do the exact same thing. And then you know what will happen? Muslims? You're not allowed to try to influence politics? Really? Why? I'm just copying your model. And by the way, I would love it if you banned us from doing it, as long as you banned them from doing it. I would love it, okay? So last thing, so that's for the powerful. Now for the rest of us, we're all brothers and sisters. We're not attacking anyone that's citizens and voters. We're winning them over, okay? So we can't win on our own. If you're on the left, it's not enough. You need the center, and you even need some of the right. Good news, the center is very open to you, and the right is now more open to you than I have ever seen in my lifetime. So how do we relate to the right? Two things. One is money, and the other is children, okay? So here's a question I ask all of the right wing, I ask all of the country. Why do we owe Israel? Why? They say, you owe Israel. Really, why? What did I do? Why do I have to take money out? Why do I have to go work an extra shift to pay for Israel to kill more Palestinian children? And I keep asking, when I go on right-wing shows, I say, hey, guys, I need you to go back to work. You haven't worked enough. You got to make more money and send it over to Israel so they can kill more children, okay? So that, because that's what your politicians are asking you to do. That is very literally what your politicians are asking you to do. Now, you want to see the right wing angry, then you look at them at that point. Go, wait, no, I don't owe anybody anything, okay? And I certainly don't owe you to go kill children over there when I don't want children dying over here, right? They're pro-life. Let's take them at their word, and now they are living up to their word. They're saying, you're right, I do care about Muslim children. And by the way, there are also Christian children in Gaza, okay? And I care about them, and their life is worth the same as any other child's life. We're going to win this battle.
One thing I would say, the one thing for us to bring more folks into the conversation is, I think there's a lot of apathy in our community. We are in a very challenging time as American Muslims right now. I think we are being tested in America in ways we have not been tested, at least the immigrant communities. The indigenous black communities have been tested very differently throughout American history. After the civil rights movement and the immigration reform and everything that brought many of us as immigrants to this country, we've had a relatively comfortable life in America. We've built institutions, we built mosques. Alhamdulillah, we have had very successful lives as professionals. We've settled down into the suburbs, and we have grown a sense of apathy. So when you go and talk to people, especially in the immigrant communities, they'll tell you, well, I'm not very political. I don't want to get political. I'm not into politics. The problem is, every aspect of our beings have now been politicized. We are politicized, our identity is politicized, our faith is politicized, our families are politicized. Everything about us now is politicized. This room should be double the size with the challenges that exist for us. And I would say that all of you, since you're involved with CARE, you all are very politically astute or trying to be politically astute. The one thing I ask of you to do is to find another 1 or 2 or 3 people in your communities who say, I'm not political. I don't get involved in politics, and bring them along slowly. Because the worst thing or the best thing, I'm sorry, for autocracy and authoritarianism and fascism, which we are in the throes of currently, is apathy of the masses. When we are stepping back, we then allow that authoritarianism to creep deeper and deeper and deeper into our lives. And so as American Muslims, we've kind of almost learned after 9/11 to live with a sense of like authoritarianism, because what's happening to Jimmy Kimmel now and Colbert now has happened to American Muslims for the past 20 years. Of course, at a much smaller level, but that's happened. We've been excluded from industries. We've been excluded from certain jobs. But now America's starting to feel it. And so the more people we get into our circle, the better it is to push back against this creeping authoritarianism. Because what's happening in Gaza is directly connected to the authoritarianism that's happening here in the US. When Israel, just yesterday and the day before, cut all communications into Gaza City, that was allowed because there was a creeping authoritarianism here in Washington, D.C. They're very much connected. And if we can't see that, then that authoritarianism will slowly creep into all of our lives. So bring people along who are comfortable, yet whose lives and whose futures and the futures of their children are at stake.
I'll keep it short because I know we don't have a lot of time. And I think the question is, what is one thing you'd ask this community that they can do? If you thought post 9/11 was bad for Muslims, wait till the next 3 years. And when I think about the institutions that have been there for the Muslim community, I think a lot about CARE and sort of the role that it's played in ensuring American Muslims and their civil liberties and protecting that. I don't think we have an organization, any other organization, that's going to stand or be the strengthening for our civil liberties the way CARE has. And so I think the one thing you can do is continue to invest and show up for CARE in all of your chapters across the country. So that's really important. It's also really important to remember that we have a collective power, but we don't have institutions that are going to be there for us when all things fail. I think the media has shown it won't be there for us. I think elected officials have shown that they are willing to oppose our ideologies and what we believe in and throw us under the bus for power. But when we as a collective build power and invest somewhere, you don't always have to think about elected Muslim candidates, but you can always remember that when I don't have the seat, which I certainly don't want to be in an elected seat forever, I don't think any of our elected officials should think about being in those seats forever. What we should remember is we're going to have an institution that's going to be there for us, irregardless who's in elected office in that moment. So it's really important for us to continue to invest in your CARE organizations and to show up and be in community.
Nothing like building institutions. I know Harith has to catch a flight, so Jazakallah khair. Thank you for accommodating us before your flight. Have a safe trip. Keep us in your dua, inshallah. We have a few more minutes, and I'm going to want to hear from you, Sophia, on this one. Just want to let everybody know, because if you're looking at your watches and the clocks, it's basically, we should finish by 9, but we got permission to eat up your break, basically, so bear with us. It's an early morning session, and we started a little bit late, so we're still getting the 1 hour. I'm going to hear from Sophia on what she recommends for the one thing to do, and then I will take a couple of questions from the audience, inshallah.
Yes, thank you. The other thing I was going to mention is also organizing, mobilizing within your communities. Again, because I do community engagement, I'm always meeting with different organizations, different people who have their own priorities when it comes to policy. But the lack of seeing, Muslim advocates coming to me, it's very rare. it just recently started because of what's happening in Palestine, but we just cannot, just settle into like being online and just talking about what needs to happen, but you need to meet our electeds where they are, coming to their district office or going to Capitol Hill to lobby. But again, I just want to really emphasize the importance of supporting electeds that are doing good work financially. And a lot of the time, what folks don't know is you can host, you and 5 of your friends can have an elected that you support come to your house and do a fundraiser for them. Later on, that translates to what you want them to prioritize. But it's not like you're buying them, but you're showing them that you care. You appreciate what they're doing, especially, for example, the squad who's always, AIPAC is looking for a candidate to primary them. So they need to depend on us as much a time that we depend on them. So I really want to emphasize that, like, really support our people, our electeds.
All right, we'll take a couple of questions. I think I'll join the audience. 1 and 2, and then I'll try, if you don't mind, I'm going to try 1 there and then come back here. And if I may say, please keep it a brief question and mention to whom this is directed at.
Great. I just want to say thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for the conversation. I also want to say that AIPAC has not silenced Cori Bush. Have it on good authority that she is coming back.
Yes, yes.
But I do want to know, because we're talking about coalition building, I work with Movement for Freedom. I was with CARE National at Mizzou with the lawsuit that the young students charged. How much we know that you all have to organize internally in community, but also across like real broad coalition building. Because the reality is, from my own experience, we don't see, and I'm saying we as like Black community, don't see particularly like Arab Muslim community when it comes down to like building across coalition.
Who is this directed?
Anyone.
I'll volunteer 1 of you or 2, or choose.
I'll take a jab at it. I am not Arab American, but I would say I think the Syrian community has accepted me as one of their own, right, Hussam? I would say I think our community is newer to this country for the most part, and I think they're learning what it means for us to organize across issues and sectors. I think the last few years, the focus has been the issue of Palestine, which is really important to this community for many reasons. But I think we're learning how to build power as a community, and I think once we fully figure that out, we'll understand what it means for us to build power with other communities and the issues that we relate on.
I'll take a stab at it too, sorry. Look, I've always been against cancel culture. I'm going to relate it to this. I was against it on the left, I'm against it on the right. And I think that as I was listening to things going on this weekend, I partly figured out why. Because once people start getting canceled, we're first, right? Muslims are first, we're going to get canceled immediately. And so why are people not coming out sometimes in the Muslim American community? Because they're honestly scared to death, right? Any little thing you say, we're humans, Palestinians have rights, canceled, 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 right? So we've got to get past that. It's not easy. And, look, I'll give you a quick example. Me and my co-host, Anna Kasparian, have been out there and fighting the good fight in the airwaves. And they are now trying to get her husband fired as the coach of a high school team, and they're asking him to denounce her. Okay. So you want to talk about cancel culture? Israel is the king of cancel culture in this country, right? So now, because of that, and I saw Hussam give an amazing speech at a mosque in LA. Thank you, brother, for putting that thought into my head, and I appreciate it so much. He gave a speech about how all of us Muslims owe Black people in this country, okay? And he said, when you look at Martin Luther King, you look at the Civil Rights Movement, you look all of it, right? Bayard Rustin, all of it, okay? They fought for our rights, okay? They didn't just fight for their rights, they fought for all of our rights, okay? So it was super powerful. And now, guys, we have an opportunity to fight for everyone else's rights, okay? So if you're in the left and you're in the right, don't worry, Muslim Americans are here to protect your rights. Because if they can cancel us, they can cancel you, okay? If they can take away our right to speech, they can take away your right to speech. So let's all unite now, Muslims, minorities, but also Christians and white folks and men and women, all of us together as American citizens and say, no, sorry, we are not giving up an inch of our rights for all of us.
I just want to say a couple things on this. I really appreciate the question and the premise of the question. I think the hard part that the community at writ large has had is that we often feel like we're in some kind of a bunker, and we pay attention to injustices that may directly affect us or people who look like us. And it's rich to show up against injustice when it's been there on your doorstep for a whole long time when it finally comes in the door. And I think that's a source of a deep amount of frustration. I spent a lot of time between a whole bunch of different worlds doing what I'm doing right now. And it's always interesting because when I sort of wind up and give my pitch, I'm like, well, I rebuilt Detroit's health department, I put glasses on kids' faces, I erased medical debt. People are like, yeah, great, get to Philistine. I'm like, okay, but I want you to ask yourself something. If you do not see that the forces that create injustice, whether they exist in Detroit or exist in Philistine, flow in the same ways, in the same directions, then you gotta ask yourself what you're really about. Are you about self-protection or are you about taking on injustice? Because if you're gonna couch your issue as being about justice, then you need to show up to take on justice wherever you see it. Not just because it comes for you, right? And I think in our communities, we have a real responsibility to be thinking about this. And this is just, that is true from a principle level, but it's also true tactically. You want people to show up for you, and how are you gonna ask them to show up for you when you didn't show up for them? And so we've been in this situation for a minute, and I'll tell you, right, like in the city of Detroit, one of the biggest issues that we've often had is that you have a large Arab Muslim community right next door. And you know what the experience is? The lived experience is that, yeah, if I go to an Arab-owned gas station, I'm not allowed to use the bathroom. And I say this, the guy who travels with me every single day, who literally would put his life on the line to protect mine, is an African-American gentleman. I remember stopping at a gas station I knew was Arab-owned. I saw the little name in the LLC. We're pumping gas, and he's like, I gotta use the bathroom. I was like, cool. So I'm sitting in the car waiting, and he's like, oh, there's no bathroom here. I was like, just a second. I get out the car, I go, I'm like, hammam? And he points me to the back. I was like, wait, so why is there a bathroom for me and not him? And so we've earned the scorn that we sometimes get. And I just think all of us in these rooms who think about our responsibility, inshallah, when we get justice for Philistine, I really, really hope that we don't then put it down and say, okay, khalas, we can go back and retreat to our nice McMansions and do our thing. It's been there for a very long time. And I think we have a responsibility inside and within our own communities. I really appreciate the question.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. My question is for my brother Cenk. You mentioned about meeting with my name is Hiba, I'm from Care, Florida. So Florida being the hotbed of Christian Zionism, or one of them in the United States. I just wanted to hear you speak to the notion of how do we address elected officials who are not among the right, who could be swayed by money or the conversation of children, but those who have this genuine biblical indoctrination or perception thereof, and that we do owe it to Israel, and that it is our responsibility to give that type of support. And obviously we're aware of the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz conversation. Not everyone's gonna have this philosophical debate, but any pointers on just basic talking points that we could throw in that direction?
Yeah, so you're right that Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz conversation was critical, because now it's in a lot of people's heads, and we do need to keep spreading it, which is, where is the government of Israel in the Bible? I don't see it, okay? Where is Knesset in the Bible, right?
Satan.
where is where is Benjamin Netanyahu in the Bible? Show me where Benjamin Netanyahu is in the Bible and where the Bible says I have to listen to him. Then I'll have a conversation with you. And I'll give you a Bible verse about, how we're all created in God's vision, right? And show me the part in the Bible that says, hey, you know what? I don't care about some humans. Where God or Jesus said, I am not interested in some humans. Some people I don't care for, I don't love, and they cannot get into the kingdom of heaven. Where does it say that in the Bible? And it doesn't say it anywhere in the Bible. They're lying about the Bible, right? First of all, Israel is not even the Jewish state in the Bible. Judah is, okay? Judah split from Israel and fought against Israel of the Bible. So which Israel are we talking about? The Israel that is the government that it claims to be a Jewish state? That's Judah in the Bible, not Israel, okay? So none of this makes any sense. And so, and when you're talking to Christians, lead with pro-life, okay? And they really genuinely do care about that. It's not like they don't. Like, sometimes we think it's a talking point. It's not a talking point to them. They really think, and I'm pro-choice, okay? But they think it's a life form inside of you, and that is why they fight so hard to protect it. So begin with that shared sense of the value of life, which is so central to their ideology, more central than the government of Israel or anything else, okay? And say, now let me show you the pictures, or just imagine our children, right? And so when you do that, for a long time in this country, it's been nothing but hypocrisy, right? The left gets in power, is hypocritical towards the right gets in power, is hypocritical to the left, et cetera. But now for the first time, because mainstream, I think the number one problem is mainstream media. They divide us, and I can go on for hours about that. But now because of social media, people are beginning to see one another. They're beginning to see, wait, hey, you know what? That Palestinian kid looks a lot like my kid. And so you say to them, absolutely, we're not here to divide anymore. We're here to unite. Please, please. Are we not human? So I keep thinking in this movement now of the civil rights movement again. And that one placard that really affected me more than any other, probably in any protest in history. The one that just simply said, I am a man. Okay? I am a man. That's it. Okay? And that's what we're all... It is not offensive to anyone. It is not anti-Semitic. It is not anything. To just simply ask for humanity, right? To be treated the same exact way you are. Not more than you, not less than you, the same as you. And a lot of Christians don't know that Jesus is a prophet in Islam. Tell them. You'd be surprised what a difference that makes. They don't know at all. When I tell Christians, Jesus Christ is holy to us. He's a prophet to us, right? They go, no, is that right? Yes. And that makes a big difference to them. And so but the most important thing is, the bottom line answer is, connect with them. First, find the thing that you guys share. The value of human life, the value of children, the value of religion in your life, and what values means to you. And they're surprised at how your values are so similar to their values. And once you make those connections, then they begin to empathize with you. And once they empathize with you and look at you as not a foreigner, not someone to attack, but someone who is their neighbor and their brother and their sister, that's when we begin to heal. That's when they begin to come to our side. That's when we begin to win.
Very well said, and I'm going to apologize. We're completely out of time, but I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank the panelists. MashaAllah, wallahi, they said gems in terms of framing our messages, focusing. I mean, a lot of things were said, but I'm going to summarize what stayed with me. Building institutions. If we want to see change, if we want to close the gap between public opinion and policy and sustain that, so build and sustain power, we need to build institutions, support institutions, locally and nationally. So the work continues after us. When we get tired, when we're on break, When our emotions go up and down, the war continues no matter what, in an institutional, systemic way. Please continue to be building those institutions in your localities. Issues are connected. Issues of injustice, as Dr. Saeed said, they're not separated. Local social injustice feeds off foreign injustice, because money flows, character, lack of character. It's the same people, same selfishness, same inhumanity that drives the injustices. So don't disconnect, don't focus on one and give your back to the other. Build bridges, as Cenk was saying, build bridges with people. You will be surprised, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right? You'll be surprised how even those you consider as enemies, as adversaries, you share with them commonalities that will bring closer our struggles. And whatever misperceptions they might have, or we might have, will disappear, inshallah. And even if we have to learn to also agree to disagree on certain things, right? There are certain things that might be okay for us to have disagreements. But it's never okay to agree that genocide is acceptable. Never okay to agree that dehumanization of another fellow human being is acceptable. So when you find a person who's willing to agree on that with you, that every person deserves dignity, work with them and build off that. Also, Sophia shared with us importance of engaging with elected officials, talking to them, meeting with them, running for office. I think that's the message we hear from, of course, everybody here. Run for office. I forgot to mention, Cenk ran, that's how I met in person with Cenk when he ran for office, for president. And he knew, he said, my chances are slim to none, but I'm gonna push the envelope and make the issues heard. And he did. Now, other candidates realize you can't ignore those issues. And that is important. Sometimes you run to force the narrative. Sometimes you run to engage and mobilize and energize people. And if you're not running for office, support the good ones who are running for office. I know we struggle a lot to say we need to add people to Congress, but don't do that while losing good ones in Congress or your state assembly and state senate. Make sure you do both and give and donate. I really want to thank each one of them for enlightening us early in the morning and full house. Each one of them. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the CARE team here at CARE National for organizing this on behalf of all of our community and all the CARE chapters. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Sir Asma, and your team, everybody else. MashaAllah, this is something we're going to build on. We're going to see the change we hope for. We're going to build the power that's rooted in justice as our values, and we're going to build coalitions as it was recommended, because I see the change way closer than the horizon now. And we cannot give up. If our brothers and sisters in Gaza, despite every murder, every tragedy, every bomb, every starvation being forced on them, continue to say, we will not give up our right to be free with dignity, we have no excuse to stop. Their resilience inspires us, and may Allah give us that strength to continue to be that voice for justice. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Turn it over to Brother Edward.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.